Folks, welcome back to the channel for our daily college basketball best bets. Real quick, before we get into the video, I'm recording this after I finished recording. I screwed up and didn't have my mic turned on for this video, so the audio is going to be coming from my camera. So if it sounds a little bit different, that's what it is for today. There's going to be like a brief, maybe 8-second, 5-second interval in the middle of this video where there's no audio because my camera shut off as well for a minute, for a couple seconds. So just letting you know about that. Again, if the video sounds a little bit different, my fault on that. My OBS didn't have my mic turned on. So it is what it is. Let's now get into our college basketball best bets here for February 22nd. And we're back for our daily college basketball best bets here for February 22nd. And of course, we hit our 125 like goal yesterday, so that means 10 best bets for this college basketball Saturday. Now Friday, it was rough again, but hey, like a wise man once said, another day, another opportunity, and that's what we get here today with this massive college basketball slate. Again, there are so many games today, so we have picked the 10 best games for today, and of course, we are going to be talking about every single one of them right now. So folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. In a couple hours, we will have our NBA predictions out on the channel as well. 5 games today in the National Basketball Association, headlined by a huge one obviously in Denver between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets. Make sure to go check that video out in a couple hours here on the channel. And also make sure to go check out our UFC Fight Night Cejudo versus Song predictions from Seattle, Washington, the Climate Pledge Arena. That card is tonight with the UFC, so make sure to check out that video, link in the description down below. And also make sure to go subscribe to Greedo Plays MMA. We are quickly approaching the first video on Greedo Plays MMA on March 2nd, so make sure again you get subscribed to that channel so you can get notified for that first Greedo Plays MMA video early in March. All right, let's get to the first of our 10 best bets for today, kicking things off with an early one, and we start in the Southeastern Conference between the Tennessee Volunteers, who are currently ranked 6th in the country, against the number 7 ranked Texas A&M Aggies. I am going with A&M at home to start the day. It's a great matchup, right? And now we don't have to completely look at all these mid-major games anymore. There will be some mid-major basketball today, but we really were lacking some big-time games the last couple days. And I'm not going to blame that for the reason, or I'm not going to say that's the reason why we weren't that hot the last couple days, but we get some bigger games now, and I like A&M in this spot, right? A&M is coming off a loss to Mississippi State. Not great, but prior to that, 5 straight wins. This team has not lost at home in the SEC since the Alabama game, which was their second home game of conference play. That's their only loss at home all year long. Their other losses in the SEC come at the Moody Center in Austin to the Texas Longhorns, in Lexington at the Rupp Arena against Kentucky, and then, of course, at Mississippi State. A&M hasn't been that bad this season, obviously, right? This is a team that's right now, I would say, projected to be a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, potentially a 3 if, we'll see how they close out the season. But this is a team that's led by Wade Taylor IV. Taylor averaging 15 points a game. Zerk Phelps also averaging 14 points a night, but Wade Taylor, again, has been the star for most of the season for the squad. Again, not a great performance on Tuesday for the Aggies at Mississippi State, but again, prior to that, a huge winning streak, beating Oklahoma, going to South Carolina and beating the Gamecocks, going to Mizzou and beating a ranked squad over there, back-to-back home wins against Georgia and Arkansas. And again, this team has risen to the occasion at home all season long. I mean, if you want to compare their 2 games against Texas, right, their first game against Texas, they get it, of course, at A&M. They beat them by 20 points. When they got to go to Austin, they do barely lose it by 1 point, but again, A&M has just been a better home team this year. And again, they haven't been horrible on the road, right? I mean, a win at Ole Miss this season, a win at Mizzou, but again, only 1 loss this year at home for A&M. And they're taking on the Tennessee Volunteers, who have struggled in a spot like this so many times this season, right? We've seen it so many times too, early morning spots as well for Tennessee, but especially in road spots. We have seen the Volunteers struggle time in and time out. And it all started, of course, with their first loss of the season. They went to Florida undefeated, and they lose the game by 30 points. We saw it again when they went to Nashville and lost to Vanderbilt. When they go to Auburn, they played a very competitive game. That was John I. Broom's return game this year for the Auburn Tigers, but again, Auburn barely edges Tennessee out in that one. And we just saw it a couple of games ago for the Volunteers. They go to Lexington and lose by 11 to Kentucky. When Tennessee has to go on the road and play ranked teams, they don't usually win. Hell, in the SEC this season against ranked squads on the road, they are winless. They are 0-3. I think A&M should be able to get this one. I'm not telling you the Volunteers are bad. Again, I think Tennessee is a decent team. I wouldn't say confident, but I think they're going to make somewhat of a run in the tournament. Obviously, both
obviously in the SEC and in the NCAA tournament as well. Led by Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler, right? Lanier with 17.5, averaging 17.5 points a game this year. Ziegler averaging 15.5. Then, of course, you get their big man in Igor Milicic, who's averaging 11 points. Jordan Gainey, Felix Okpara, right? The other, starting guys on this Volunteers squad. But this game, honestly, just comes down to Tennessee on the road. And it's been, again, a spot that they've just struggled in all year. I think A&M should be able to win this game. I think these two teams are fairly evenly matched, sure, but just matchup-wise and looking at, again, the specifics of this game, we've seen this story so many times with Tennessee. They're a much better team at home, again, as apparent, which was evident in their second matchup with Florida, right? They lose the first game against the Gators by 30, they get them again in Knoxville, and they beat Florida by 20 points. It's just, they're much different on the road, and they haven't won a big road game all year long. I mean, who's their best road win all season in the SEC? What, Texas? Sure, I mean, they'll play, but again, if Texas is your biggest road win, I don't expect them to go to A&M and win this game either. We look at the odds, Texas A&M, a -1.5 favorite, -1.5 point favorite, -130 on the money line. Just take the money line. I mean, if you want to take 1.5, take it. Regardless, I like A&M to win this game. It just doesn't feel like a good spot for Tennessee. Again, both these teams obviously going to be very highly seeded in the NCAA tournament, but right now, again, still what, 5 regular season games, left in the SEC. We like the Texas A&M Aggies to win at home here against the Tennessee Volunteers. We move on to our second best bet of the video, and we go to the Big 12 and to Cincinnati, Ohio. We have faded Cincinnati a lot this year. I believe they have to be the team we faded the most so far this season in the Big 12, and we're going to continue to do that here. I'm going to go against the grain, at least with the current trends of the Cincinnati Bearcats at home recently. I know, again, last week, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, they picked up back-to-back home victories against BYU and Utah. Okay, they beat both of the Utah teams at home in Cincinnati. They go on the road. They lose 2 road games to Iowa State and West Virginia. Obviously, you may have seen the Cincinnati-West Virginia game. They lose the game by 3. They're really down by 9 with like 8 seconds left, and they pulled one of the craziest covers you are ever going to see in that game. Regardless, Cincinnati returns home. Sure, they were on a 3-game winning streak prior to those last 2 losses to the Cyclones and to the Mountaineers, beating UCF, BYU, and Utah. But I think TCU is able to make this a competitive game in Cincinnati. We've watched Cincinnati all year long. Sure, they looked impressive in the 2 home victories, I think especially in the BYU game. I mean, they beat that BYU team by 22 points, or 18 points, on Saturday night. Jizzle James with 24 points in that game. We had always talked about Cincinnati, and the problem with the Bearcats this season really was them not finding an offensive identity. They didn't have one guy they can turn to and say, all right, this is our guy. We thought it was Simas Lukauskis earlier in the season, obviously, because he finished last year really hot for the Bearcats. No, it wasn't him. It really wasn't Dan Skillings, maybe Dylan Mitchell. No, it's Jizzle James. Jizzle James has risen to the occasion as of late for the Bearcats. Sure, he only averages 12 points a night, but in the last 5 games, he's played 15, 24, 25, 25, and 13 in the West Virginia game. But again, James is the guy for Cincinnati in his second season for the Bearcats. So at least Cincinnati has an offensive identity now. I still don't think they're able to beat Texas Christian by more than 6.5 points. Again, I wouldn't play the money line either side, obviously with Cincinnati being a -300 favorite, but I wouldn't touch the money line either way. I think TCU covers, and again, I think they could potentially win the Horned Frogs, but if I had to pick, probably Cincinnati gets it. I just think 7 points is way too much, especially for a TCU team who has won 5 out of their last 6 games, right? Dating back to their Colorado victory, they beat the Buffs by 11, they beat West Virginia at home by 5, they go to Iowa State, sure, they get blown out by 30, but I think, again, going to Iowa State's a little bit different than going to Cincinnati. Now, I get it, Iowa State has a huge matchup today against Houston. We likely think they're going to get blown out, but I'm staying away from that game just with the Iowa State injuries. I think, again, Houston probably covers the huge spread that they're getting, but, again, I just stay away. Anyways, TCU, after the Iowa State loss, beats Oklahoma State by 1 point. They go to Tempe and beat Arizona State by 4, and then a huge victory in their last game, beating the Red Raiders by 3 points, 69-66. So again, Texas Christian is playing with all this momentum right now, and I'm not telling you they're going to go to Cincinnati and win. Again, they could, but we just need them to cover this line, right? You look at TCU, an 8-17 this year in the Big 12, Cincy a 5-10 squad. So TCU's been the all-around better team all year long. This is the only matchup these two teams get in the regular season. I mean, potentially, again, we could see them in the Big 12 tourney, but the Horned Frogs are led by Noah Reynolds. Reynolds averaging 13 points a night. And again, we talked about that Cincinnati team you know, Jizzle James has been the guy as of late. CMOS has really cooled down. I mean, he started the year kind of hot, obviously, you know, playing off that momentum he gained in the Big 12 tourney last year and at the end of last season. But, I mean, again, the Lithuanian senior, he's good for a couple 3-balls. He's going to launch them up, but you can't really rely on Lukauskas to do much. Again, it is all Jizzle James in the offense now for Cincinnati. Again, I think the Bearcats can definitely win, but 6.5 points either direction just feels like too many. I get the game is in Cincinnati, and the Bearcats did come off 2 huge victories at home just a couple weeks ago, but they're not playing with any momentum right now. Again, they could win, but they're playing with literally zero momentum. Back-to-back losses on the road to Iowa State and in Morgantown to West Virginia. Texas Christian with wins in 5 out their last 6. This is a squad at one point in time that was 3-6 in the Big 12. They've now found their way to 8-7 with a somewhat favorable schedule coming up with West Virginia, UCF, Baylor, and then Colorado in their last game. I mean, TCU, if they can start compiling some victories, some more victories at the end of the season, obviously, they'll be in a much better spot for the Big 12 tourney. Again, don't really care who wins the game. I just need a competitive basketball game, and I think that's exactly what we get. Give me the Texas Christian Horned Frogs to go on the road, plus 6.5 in Cincinnati, Ohio, against the Cincinnati Bearcats. We move on to our third best bet of the video, and we go to the Big Ten. We got the Minnesota Golden Gophers at home in Minneapolis hosting the Penn State Nittany Lions. We like Minnesota to cover this spread at home. Penn State's just horrible, right? Now, Minnesota, again, I have come around on this team, obviously. We had to, right? We thought early in the season that Minnesota was absolutely god-awful, and they were. They had, again, kind of like Cincinnati, they had no identity. Dawson Garcia, we knew he was an elite player, but Garcia has gotten a little bit of help as of late, right? Don't get me wrong. Garcia is still a dog, and we're going to talk about that Minnesota game against UCLA in a minute. But, you know, Dawson Garcia, he doesn't have to do everything now because there is some help with Lucy Patterson at times, right? Parker Fox actually has a very minimal role now. I mean, decreased role in this team, but Lucy Patterson's been huge helping out Dawson Garcia. Now, don't get me wrong. Garcia is one of the best players in the Big Ten, obviously, averaging 20 and 8 a game. And that game that Minnesota comes from behind and wins in or at Los Angeles against UCLA is incredible. You know how highly we speak of UCLA. I still think the Bruins are a good team. I still think they're going to make a run in the NCAA tournament. Again, I think they're going to be okay. But Minnesota, man, going on the road and beating UCLA by 3. Dawson Garcia leading the comeback. I mean, I think he scored 12 straight points towards the end of the second half. Garcia with 32 and 8 in that game to propel the Minnesota Golden Gophers to victory. They go to Los Angeles and sweep both USC and UCLA, and the games were pretty much identical. The game last Saturday against USC, same thing. They were losing for most of that game. They come back at the very end, get the Trojans, do the same exact thing against the UCLA Bruins, and a successful California trip for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now, it is still very highly unlikely this team can somehow get in with an at-large. I mean, they need, even if they swept here, I don't think would they get in? If they beat Penn State, Northwestern, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Rutgers, obviously the Wisconsin win would be huge. But honestly, when we think about it, it's not that crazy to think Minnesota could run the table here. I don't know. The way that they're playing right now, again, we think they're going to beat Penn State, and I'll get more into breaking down that Minnesota-Penn State matchup in a second. Northwestern at home on Tuesday. I'd be surprised if Minnesota doesn't win that game. At Nebraska will be difficult. It really will be. And then Wisconsin at home will be a tight one. And then going up to New Jersey to play Rutgers will be tough as well. But I mean, hell, Minnesota might put themselves in a situation come next Saturday where they're 8-9 in the conference. Going to Nebraska, if they can beat the Huskers, they would be now 500 in Big Ten play. I don't know. I think Minnesota would still need some help, but honestly, they could probably play their way into the tournament here, and obviously they would need a big Big Ten tourney as well. But the way that they're playing, I'm just saying, I know they were pretty bad in non-conference play, right? The losses to North Texas, Wichita, and Wake Forest, and ultimately, that's why we thought they were going to be so bad in Big Ten play. And sure, they started Big Ten play horribly, but that big win over Michigan changed their season. They beat Michigan, they beat Iowa, and they go on to beat the Oregon Ducks, who are absolutely horrible. But still, I really like Dawson Garcia. We know he's an elite player. And for Penn State, this is a team that is just going south by the minute. Now, they did pick up a huge victory on Wednesday against Nebraska. One I didn't see coming. Let's just keep it honest. Let's just be real here. No one thought they were going to beat Nebraska. This team was on an 8-game losing streak prior to the Nebraska game. I mean, I guess the odds were that close on that. Really? Nebraska was only minus 130 in that game? I guess. Nebraska is shaky sometimes. But still, I mean, Penn State's just horrible, man. They lost to Washington at home the game before, right? I mean, Ace Baldwin's the guy here, but Baldwin's been very underwhelming at points this season. He will have games, don't get me wrong. Ace Baldwin will have good games. But overall, he has not played great ball this season. Penn State, again, 4-12 in the Big Ten this season. They've got 2 wins in the Big Ten since mid-January. It's the Rutgers win at home, and then, of course, the Nebraska victory in their last game. But a huge 8-game losing streak to the likes of Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, Minnesota, UCLA, USC, and Washington. Now find them in this spot here on the road at Minnesota. It's the first matchup of the season between these two teams, and only matchup of the season between these two squads. I just think Minnesota's better. Who's gonna guard Dawson Garcia? I mean, it will be Yannick Niederhauser from Switzerland. Not a bad defensive guy, and he's honestly probably been the most consistent player for Penn State as of late. I would say more consistent than Kern and of Ace Baldwin as well, and Zach Hicks. But still, Minnesota is just the all-around better basketball team. Penn State's not winning back-to-back games in the Big Ten. I feel pretty confident in saying so. And again, Minnesota is riding the high of going to California and sweeping both UCLA and USC for the first time ever in the Big Ten, right? At least for Minnesota, right? Penn State's at the bottom of the standings in the Big Ten. We talk about the bottom 3 teams that are going to miss the Big Ten tournament. I feel pretty confident in saying it will likely be Penn State and Washington as 2 of those squads. Who will be the third? Will it be Northwestern, Iowa, potentially Rutgers, USC, Indiana? I don't know. If I had to guess, probably still be Northwestern. I know they just beat Ohio State. It'll probably be Northwestern. Their schedule's pretty rough. Minnesota on the road, Iowa, UCLA, Maryland. Yeah, it probably will be Northwestern. I think Iowa will barely sneak into the Big Ten tourney, but again, we'll see. Still got a lot of basketball to play here in the regular season. As for now, though, we're taking the Minnesota Golden Gophers to win at home and to cover the 3.5 points as well. We move on to our 4th game of the video, and we go to the Atlantic Coast Conference, as we are going back to South Bend, Indiana for the 2nd time this week, as we've got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish hosting the Pittsburgh Panthers. On the CW network, give me Pitt. I don't think Notre Dame is good. I think that was more than apparent in their last game where they gave up 97 points to Southern Methodist. Guys, that game wasn't close. SMU was up by 25 points in the first half, and they're up by 25 points, I don't know, within the first 12 minutes. It just wasn't a competitive game. I don't think Notre Dame's good. I don't think that's a hot take by any stretch. They've gone ice cold after their back-to-back wins in late January to Virginia and to Georgia Tech since January 28th. They've lost to Miami. Yikes. They go to Tallahassee, lose to Florida State. They lose to Virginia Tech. They beat BC in a double overtime game, then back-to-back losses at home to the Louisville Cardinal and to Cardinals, not Stanford. Stanford's the, just the Cardinal. Louisville's the Cardinals. And then SMU as well. At South Bend. Their 3rd straight home game here. I think they get swept at home. I'm taking Pittsburgh. Before we get into Pitt, Notre Dame's just, I don't know. Braden Shrewsbury, I always butcher his name. He's not bad. He averaged 21, put up 21 in the SMU game. He's their sophomore guard. They got Marcus Burton, obviously, who has been really good all season long, but then we saw in the SMU game, he put up 2 points. I don't know. I don't think Notre Dame's good. And again, we expected Burton to have a night against Southern Methodist. Hell, he scored 32 a couple games ago in double OT against BC. Again, he's a player who's going to average over 20 a night. And then he goes out there, plays 25 minutes, goes 1 for 6 from the field, doesn't hit a 3-pointer against SMU. I don't know. It's not a winning formula. And again, nothing really at Notre Dame this season in terms of basketball has felt like a winning formula. I think Pitt's just the better team, right? The Panthers 7-8 this year in the ACC, and I get it, they're going on the road. They haven't won on the road in the ACC since going to upstate New York and beating Syracuse on January 25th. I mean, their opportunities since they lose a close game at Wake Forest, they lose a 1-point game at North Carolina, and then they go to SMU and lose. A lot of teams have been going to SMU and losing recently, but Pitt is coming into this game with Notre Dame off of back-to-back victories, beating the Miami Hurricanes and Syracuse, winning both those games pretty handedly. This team is not bad, though. Again, I think Pitt's a better home team, obviously. I think that was apparent in their win over North Carolina. It was a very good victory for them. But I think, again, Pitt's just better than Notre Dame. I think Ishmael Leggett's been playing great basketball recently. Of course, Jalen Lau's on this team as well, but Leggett scored 19 in the Syracuse game, 21 in the Miami game, 17 in the loss to Virginia. Leggett's been the most consistent scorer this season for Pitt. I mean, he's posting his best numbers of his entire collegiate career, even better than what he was doing a couple seasons ago at URI. Leggett's been really good for Pitt. And I think, again, Leggett and Lau are probably the two best players in the court, other than Marcus Burton, obviously, and we'll see again what we get out of Burton after that straight stinker he put up the other day against SMU. But Pitt just feels like the all-around better basketball team. I get it, Notre Dame's at home, but I don't think that means too much. Again, Notre Dame is part of that, bottom tier of the ACC. Again, I don't think they're on the level of bad as Boston College and Miami, but they're not that much better. You look at the odds, again, Pitt, is a slight favorite in this game, -1.5, -130 on the money line. We're taking exactly that. Let's take the money line here for the Pitt Panthers, -130 on the road here in South Bend, Indiana. Notre Dame's just not that great. They started the season all right in ACC play. I mean, hell, they went to Georgetown and won this year. They beat Syracuse, but I don't know. I don't buy Notre Dame at all, and obviously we faded them the other day, picking SMU against them. We're going to do the same exact thing here. Give me the Pittsburgh Panthers on the road in South Bend, Indiana, against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Let's go on to our 5th game of the video, and we move to the Mountain West. Full transparency, this was the 10th game I picked today. So if you want confidence levels, this is number 10. But I am going to throw it in here because I think it is a decent opportunity to get plus money, and yes, we are taking the Fresno State Bulldogs. Normally, not a winning formula. I understand. They're playing Air Force, though, all right? Air Force is absolutely abysmal. We've faded Air Force a lot in the Mountain West this year for good reason. Hell, we picked the last Fresno State Air Force game that was played at the Save Mart Center earlier this year, and we did cash with the Bulldogs, winning that game by 9. Guys, Air Force is 0-15 this year in the Mountain West. And now, Fresno State is 1-15, but the Bulldogs are much better than Air Force. I truly believe that. Air Force rarely plays competitive games. The last competitive game they played was a home spot against San Diego State where they only lost by 1 point. But Fresno is just better than Air Force. I get it, Fresno gets blown out quite a bit as well, but I mean, hell, just 2 games ago, they hosted UNLV and only lost the game by 1 point. They hosted San Jose State, took them to double overtime, lost the game by 3, played Utah State, lost to them by 8, right? They are more competitive in more games than Air Force is. And I think the better players do play for Fresno State as well. We're talking about Jalen Weaver, who averages 12.5 points for this Fresno State squad, along with Zayon Collins, who averages 12 as well. They've been without, we've talked about it before, they've been without Lamar Aguilar for most of the season. Their junior guard out of Zion, Illinois, has been out since December, but again, it's been Weaver and it has been Collins and Alex Crawford, for that matter, as well, who have really made up the scoring for the Bulldogs in Aguilar's absence. For Air Force, man, just a very bad basketball team, and now Air Force has never been known for their athletics, especially basketball. This team is still yet to win in the calendar year of 2025. Their last victory comes on December 7th with the win over Stony Brook. Air Force has been one of the worst teams in college basketball all year long, mid-major or not. Well, I mean, I don't think a Power 6 team is worse than Air Force, but still, this team hasn't won in 2025 yet. Again, their last victory comes on December 7th. Air Force has 3 wins all season long. One of those games happens to be against the likely, well, right now, the likely regular season COSA champions in the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. I don't know how that one happened. That was one of the first best bet videos we made all year. We took Jacksonville State and somehow Air Force beat them. I get the game was in Colorado Springs, but how did that happen? I don't know. And then we were like, okay, I remember this vividly. Then we said, you know what? Okay, maybe Air Force isn't that bad this season, right? They went on a huge, like, 11-0 run to close the first half against Jacksonville State. We thought they weren't that bad. Then we took them to beat Long Island, and they lose the Sharks. We've been off of Air Force the rest of the season, but again, their 3 wins of the season are against the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State, Mercyhurst, the Lakers aren't great, and then Stony Brook in a neutral site by 8 points. They have not won a game since. It's a lot of losing, guys. It's a lot. 16 straight losses coming into this game. If Air Force is ever going to win one, it's going to come right now. But here's the thing, they just don't score. They have games where they score, I mean, they played San Diego State and they scored 38 points in one game. They're just not that good. And it gets worse because Ethan Taylor has been their best guy all season long. He's a senior for this Air Force team. Obviously, you know, you don't see many transfers in and out of the Air Force. I was going to go military academies, obviously. So again, Taylor's been here his entire collegiate career. He's been by far the best guy for Air Force all season long, right? He still averages 14.5 points a game. This team is trending downwards, though, because look, Ethan Taylor in his last 3 has not hit 10 points. Look at it. We look at Ethan Taylor's last 3 performances. He has struggled mightily to shoot the basketball. Against New Mexico, Ethan Taylor goes 3 for 11 shooting, puts up 8 points against New Mexico. The UNLV game, 2 for 11 from the field, 6 points. And the worst performance yet in Laramie, Wyoming against the Wyoming Cowboys, Taylor goes 0 for 7, plays 35 minutes and scores 3 points, all of which were from the free throw line. If Ethan Taylor's not on, oh, Air Force is screwed. He's been their best guy all season long. So with Taylor struggling, they've really been working the ball down low more. They've been working it to their center in Wesley Silchowski, the sophomore out of Georgetown, Indiana. He averages 9.5 a game, but hell, he scored 16 and I believe was this team's leading scorer against Wyoming, or one of their leading scorers in that game. Yeah, he was their leading scorer. They've been working the ball to him and to their 3/4-ish Luke Kearney, the sophomore out of Phoenix, who averages 9 points a game. He's been scoring consistently more than 10 each night, but just the way Ethan Taylor's been playing in, you know, this adjustment period that Air Force has had because Taylor has been so off makes me feel even more confident about taking Fresno State. Now, our luck, Ethan Taylor is going to come back and score 25 tonight, but I'm willing to say he continues to go down that, you know, that path of inconsistency scoring-wise, and we are going to take the Fresno State Bulldogs to go on the road and beat them. Again, full transparency, this is the 10th confidence bet. 10th most confidence bet I have today, but I will still take Fresno State plus money here, plus 1.5 to take the money line, plus 110 for the Fresno State Bulldogs on the road in Colorado Springs against the Air Force Falcons. Let's move on to our 6th game of the video, and now we get some mid-major ball. Well, that was a mid-major game, but here is real mid-major basketball. Let's go down to Alabama, as we have got Alabama State in Montgomery, obviously, hosting Florida A&M. The pick here is plus 4.5 for the Vipers, or the Rattlers. Don't mind the money line, though. The official pick is plus 4.5. You can play the money line if you want. Florida A&M's hot right now. And we did predict their last game. It was a huge victory for them at home against the Alcorn State Braves, beating Alcorn State by 9 points at home. This team's on fire, man. Florida A&M really struggled to start SWAC play this year. They did. They were struggling. They were 0-3 at one point. What have they done since they've won 9 out their last 10 games? Since losing to Grambling State on January 13th, they've only lost 1 game since that game, and it was to Alabama State by 1 point. This is time for revenge. Again, Florida A&M has looked great against every other team in this 10-game stretch, and they didn't look bad in the Alabama State game, but they lose it by 1. I think they get their get-back tonight. This is a team coming off a 4-game winning streak and some really impressive victories at that. Guys, going on the road and beating Texas Southern, I get it. Texas Southern has kind of fallen off as the season has gone on, but that's a good victory. Going to Texas Southern and beating that team by 2, Prairie View, all right, not the best squad, but they go there and win. They beat Jackson State, Mo Williams' squad. They beat them by 5 points. Jackson State looked unstoppable the other day against Bethune-Cookman. And then a 9-point victory on Monday against Alcorn. This Florida A&M team is playing their best ball all season long, and you've got to give all the credit in the world to Sterling Young and Milton Matthews. Both these guys, any given night, Young and or Matthews can post 20 plus. Sterling Young again averaging 16 points a night, Milton Matthews averaging 14, Jordan Chapman's been solid, and who else has been solid? Shaq's son, Shakir. Yes, Shaquille O'Neal in his first season with Florida A&M has been very solid. He's been good for the squad, obviously an expanded role since he left Texas Southern. He scored 12 points in 25 minutes in the Rattlers' victory on Monday against Alcorn State. Again, Shakir can play, man. Shakir can play. They're taking on Alabama State, right? Florida A&M 9-4 in the SWAC, Alabama State 8-5. Obviously, they are all chasing the Southern Jaguars, who are by far the best team in the conference, right? Only 1 loss for them this season, and that was a 1-point loss to Alabama State. Now, again, don't get me wrong. Florida A&M, Alabama State, Southern. I will still throw Jackson State in there. Those are the elite teams in the SWAC. There are some other good teams, right? Bethune-Cookman, Texas Southern, Alcorn State. I think these four, though, are the elite four, right? I still expect Southern to likely win the SWAC, but if I had to rank the probabilities, I would say probably Southern, Florida A&M, Alabama State, Jackson State, then everybody else, right? Maybe I'd throw Bethune, probably, maybe Texas Southern next. If Bethune gets healthy, maybe, because Bethune's really, they're really injured right now. But still, right, the SWAC's competitive. We still likely expect the Southern Jaguars to get it, but obviously these teams are all chasing them. Alabama State has the victory over Southern. Florida A&M's the hottest team in the conference right now. And for the Hornets, they are coming off 3 straight wins. Again, we talked about that aforementioned game against Southern where they won by 1 point, and then back-to-back victories on the road, given against the 2 worst teams in all of college basketball in the division at the Division I level. We're talking about Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Mississippi Valley State. Texas Southern is a 23.5-point favorite today against Mississippi. Home spot against Grambling, losing that game by 10. I think it's an extremely winnable game here for Florida A&M. If anything, though, it's going to be close. It's going to be one that's going to go down to the wire. That's why the +4.5 feels so good. We can take +160, don't mind it. But again, the official play in this game is the Florida A&M Rattlers on the spread. The Hornets are led by Amar Knox and CJ Hines. Both of those guys average 15 a night. Again, Knox and Hines are good, but I like Young and Matthews better. I do, right? TJ Madlock, another guy for this Alabama State team who does average 12 points a night. I think the better team, though, plays with the better team here is Florida A&M. I think they are. I think it's a competitive basketball game, don't get me wrong. It was a very close outing the first time around. Alabama State barely got by on the road. This is where Florida A&M gets their get back. They are playing like the hottest team in the SWAC right now, and I think they go on the road and win this game. So give me Florida A&M to go to Alabama State and win. Again, the official play here, though, is +4.5. I don't mind the money line at all, but officially, the play, the best bet, is +4.5 for the Florida A&M Rattlers. We move on now to our seventh, I think it's our 7th, maybe our 6th. I lost track. Our next game, we go to Houston, Texas for the Houston Christian Huskies hosting the Lamar Cardinals. Like Lamar. We took Lamar last Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, right? We had them in a road spot at East Texas A&M to cover, I believe, what was it, 7.5 points. They ended up winning the game by 10, so shout out to Lamar. They've been pretty good for us all season long. They're 12-4 this year in the Southland Conference, and they're on a heater right now. They have won 8 out their last 9 games, with their only loss being a road loss at Southeastern Louisiana, who's a very tough team. But Lamar, again, picking up huge wins. They have beat Houston Christian earlier in the season. It was January 4th. It was a 2-point victory at Lamar. The Cardinals won the game again 63-61 against Houston Christian. But this is a Lamar team coming off a 4-game winning streak, beating Rio Grande Valley by 2, beating Texas A&M Corpus Christi by 11, beating East Texas A&M again in that aforementioned game last Saturday by 10 on the road, and then going to Northwestern State and beating that team by 10 on the road as well. For the Houston Christian Huskies, this team is ice cold right now. They are ice cold. And again, college basketball is weird sometimes, as we've seen in the last couple days. Sometimes the trends don't always play out like we think they're going to, but Houston Christian has lost 5 out their last 6 games after their victory over Southeastern Louisiana on the road, which is a victory that keeps on aging better and better. They lost to Incarnate Word by 10, lost to Nichols by 8. By the way, Nichols in Southeastern Louisiana, when was that game? Last Saturday? One of the best college basketball games I've ever watched. I'm not joking. It was insane. We had Southeastern Louisiana. They won with a buzzer beater in overtime. It was Sam Hines. My goodness. I am pumped for the Southland tournament this year. It's going to be fun. Again, we expect McNeese to likely win it, but man, Lamar and Southeastern Louisiana and Nichols can all make runs at potentially winning the damn thing. The Southland's really fun, man. But again, yes, if you get the chance, watch Southeastern Louisiana and Nichols from last Saturday. We cashed on Southeastern Louisiana. It was one hell of a basketball game. Anyways, Houston Christian, again, we're talking about their losses. Incarnate Word, Nichols, a win over the New Orleans Privateers, who are horrible, and then 3 straight losses to Southeastern Louisiana, UT Rio Grande Valley, and then Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Don't always want to compare common opponents, but Houston Christian loses by 26 points at Rio Grande Valley and 6 points at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Lamar beats UT Rio Grande Valley by 2 and beats Corpus Christi by 11. Those games just happened a couple weeks ago. Right, Lamar's playing like the way better basketball team right now. They are a -120 on the line. Houston Christian coming back up +100. Lamar's only a 1.5 point favorite in this game. I think they should be a 3, potentially 4.5 point favorite here. I get it, they are on the road, the game's in Houston, but Lamar is just the better basketball team. And they've got a couple scores, whether it be Alexis Marmolejos, who averages 15 points a night, Jashawn Jackson, who averages 12, or Andrew Holyfield, who averages 11. Any of those guys can go off. They have a solid big in Adam Hamilton as well, who averages 9 and 7 every night as well. Houston Christian, they've been struggling to score recently. They're led by Julian Mackey and Bryson Dawkins. Mackey scoring 16 a night, Dawkins with 14. But again, all the momentum is totally on the side of Lamar. The Southland, again, is, I wouldn't say it's as unpredictable as the CAA, because the CAA, man, that's something. But the Southland, again, is a tough conference to go on the road and win at, but I do think Lamar's just the better basketball team. Houston Christian's playing with absolutely no momentum right now. Yeah, they finally do return home. But man, I mean, Southeastern Louisiana went into town and beat them. I get the Lions are great right now, but if they're able to do it, I think Lamar is able to do it as well. Lamar did win the first matchup, even though it was close. I think the Cardinals do it again. Give me the Lamar Cardinals to go on the road in Houston and to take down the Houston Christian Huskies. -1.5 money line. Either way, take it. We're going with Lamar on the road in Houston against the Huskies. Let's go on to our next game as we move to a spot here in the Big West. Let's go to San Luis Obispo as we have got the Cal Poly Mustangs against that damn cesspool, the UC Riverside Highlanders. We stay away from UC Riverside. We do. All right. If we ever talk about the cesspool, we're usually fading them. We're actually going to take UC Riverside here. Hear me out. I think it's actually tremendous value for UCR. I think it is. They're a bad road team, I will say that. They play much better when they actually play in the cesspool. By the way, I have nothing against the actual guys in this team. All right, just not a fan of the university. Anyways, shout out the UC Riverside baseball team, though. They're my guys. Yeah, UC Riverside, -130 on the line here. They should be able to win this game. They are a much better team when they actually play in the cesspool. But Cal Poly's nothing special, man. They're not. UCR has struggled on the road, I'm not going to lie. They go to Davis, where, again, Davis is not a cesspool. It just smells like a cesspool. But it's just like a cow cesspool because it smells like cow shit. Anyways, I swear I don't have beef with the entire Big West. Riverside goes to UC Davis, loses the game by 1 point. They go to UC San Diego, lose by 20. Everyone right now, including, I love UCI, but including UCI, everyone's losing to UC San Diego right now. I hope UCI gets them in the tourney, but I'm just, right now, if I had to predict, like, if I had to pick it, UC San Diego's winning the Big West. They just are. UCI's falling apart right now. I hope UCI wins today. They have who do they get at home? I think UCI's at, UCI, they're on the road. Irvine's on the road at Cal State Bakersfield today. They should win, but I don't know. The way that team's playing right now, I don't even know if Miles Chase back or not. Regardless, UCR's other losses in the Big West, right? Santa Barbara on the road, UCI on the road. Their victories on the road are Long Beach State and Bakersfield. Two of the worst teams in the conference. Bakersfield, arguably, though, is better than Poly. I would say, Poly went to Bakersfield and won. I mean, Bakersfield's got the all-around better resume this season, but Cal Poly has been playing better recently, I'd say. Cal Poly finally got off the schneid, obviously, right? I mean, they hadn't won in the Big West in over 2.5 years. They finally get one. Of course, we had the Beach in that game, right? They beat Long Beach, and they proceeded to win 4 of 5 after that, beating the Beach, beating Bakersfield on the road, losing at the cesspool to UCR by 18, beating Hawaii, and then beating Cal State Fullerton on the road as well. Cal State Fullerton has fully taken over the title of by far the worst team in the Big West this season. And then after the Fullerton game, Cal Poly loses back-to-back to CSUN, who just beat Irvine, and then against UCSD as well. Cal Poly's better than previous years, obviously, right? They've got just a bunch of guards who are not horrible. Owen Kuntz is their best player. Kuntz averages 17 a night. First season with Cal Poly, He's a senior. I think he went the D2 route, if I'm not mistaken. He played at Colorado his freshman year. He's finally back at the Division I level. He's been really good for Cal Poly. Jared Hyder's been pretty solid as well, the senior out of San Bernardino, averages 13 points a night. He's a guy who used to play at Fresno and Cal. And then Isaac Jesup is also not that bad either. He's 6'2", senior out of Spokane. Another guy like Owen Kuntz, played at Colorado back in 2020, now here at Cal Poly his senior season. Again, they've got guys who can play. I just think the better team is UC Riverside. And UC Riverside, I don't think Barrington Hargress is going to win Player of the Year in the conference, because that's going to go to Tate Jones of UCSD, even maybe Bent Leishton over at UCI. But Barrington Hargress, I mean, has really come on as of late this season. He's been great. I mean, the standout victory is, or standout performance is the 40-ball game that Hargress had against UCSD. The only loss, or one of the two losses UCSD has this year in the Big West, was, again, on the road at the cesspool, and shout out to Hargress, 40 points in that game. He's a good player, 26 in the victory over UCSB the other night, or last Saturday at least. Hargress, again, averaging 20 points this season. He has been phenomenal for UCR. I don't know if he's going to transfer out. He's only a sophomore. He's, he should, honestly. I mean, he's a guy who can play, at the power level, I do believe. Hargress has been great for UC Riverside, and he's going to be the best guy on the court tonight. Yes, Cal Poly has an influx of guards, Kuntz, Hyder, Jesup, but the best player on the court is going to be Barrington Hargress. And I don't mind UCR's center. I'm going to butcher his name, but it's Joel Armotrading. Butchered it. He plays about 20 a night. I got a chance to watch this UCR team when they played at Santa Clara. I saw the Broncos absolutely blow this team out. If they were to play again, I think Santa Clara still wins, but regardless, Joel's not horrible. His numbers aren't great, but he makes an impact on the court. Again, his numbers don't translate, but he's not a bad basketball player. He's a senior, and he plays bigger than he is. He's 6'10", but he's going to be a factor in this basketball game, especially because Cal Poly goes small basically the entire game. I mean, they'll have spots where, there are spots where Kuntz is their biggest guy on the court. They just don't play that big. Yes, they'll play some forwards, but they'll play some 5-guard lineups. And again, the 6'5" Owen Kuntz will be their biggest player on the court. So that's where, again, I think Armotrading can make an impact in this basketball game. But obviously, again, Barrington Hargress is the guy to watch for the Highlanders. And that's exactly where we're going in this game. I'm taking UCR. I don't care the games in San Luis Obispo. I'm taking the UC Riverside Highlanders. They're not playing in the cesspool. UCR, though, is still definitely a cesspool, but we like the UCR Highlanders to go on the road to beat the Cal Poly Mustangs. -1.5 on the line. Don't mind it. -130 as well. Give me UCR on the road at Cal Poly to take down the Mustangs. Let's go on to our next game here as we move to the Mountain West, as we've got a matchup here between the Boise State Broncos going on the road against the Nevada Wolfpack. I'm going with Boise. Yeah, we're taking the bait on the road team here. Don't love it, but I don't think it's a horrible spot. I don't think it is. This, again, if I would have to rank them, this is probably 9 now on the list, right? This is, Fresno State's 10, Boise State's 9 on the confidence list, all right? Everything else, it's playable 1 through 8, don't care. Don't get me wrong. I still think Boise goes on the road and wins. I think they do. I get a little bit scared it's a letdown spot. That's my only concern here, because it is a typical letdown spot here. In Reno, they're coming off their biggest win of the season. They beat the top-ranked team in the Mountain West, the New Mexico Lobos, at home in Boise, and now they got to go on the road to Reno to play Nevada. It does feel like a letdown spot for a Boise team who has struggled all year long on the road this season. At San Diego State a couple games ago, they got blown out. They go to Colorado State, lose. They get blown out the pit. They went to Utah State, barely lost. But the thing is, Nevada hasn't played their best ball all year long. I mean, they just haven't been that great of a team. The theme around the Wolfpack, at least to start Mountain West play, was, oh wow, look how unlucky they're getting, right? A 2-point loss to Colorado State, a 3-point loss to Wyoming, the Nelly Jr. Joseph floater from the free throw line, game winner at the pit against New Mexico, right? That was the theme for Nevada. But then they, won a couple games against some bad teams, Fresno, San Jose. Well, San Jose's not horrible, but Fresno and Air Force. Lose 3 in a row to Utah State, San Diego State, and a 10-point loss at Boise. Sure, they bounced back and won 4 in a row since beating UNLV, but again, then here comes the bad teams. Air Force, Fresno. Yeah, they beat San Jose State, whatever. The Spartans are very off and on with Latrell Davis and the guys over there, obviously. And then Nevada just lost their last game at Colorado State by 8 points. Here's a home spot for Nevada. Obviously, neither of these teams are looking at an at-large bid. I mean, their future does reside within the Mountain West tournament. I mean, again, neither of these teams are going to get in as it stands. They're going to have to win the Mountain West to make the tourney, but I think, again, it's going to be incredibly difficult for a team not named New Mexico, Utah State, or San Diego State to win it, but we'll see if anyone can steal a bid in this, obviously. That's the beauty of college basketball, right? But I just don't think Nevada is the best, and I think Boise's able to get them for the second time this season, right? Nick Davidson leads the scoring and pretty much leads everything for Nevada. Kobe Sanders too, but Nick Davidson obviously averaging 16 and 6 this season. Sanders obviously with 14 and 3. The rest of the squad is just not the best. Boise had a really good game against New Mexico, man. They did. They shot lights out, and Tyson Degenhart played a tremendous basketball game as well. He's the best player in this game. Degenhart averaging 18 points a night this season and 32 in the victory over New Mexico. It was going to take a Herculean-type effort out of someone for Boise State. Obviously, we expected it to be their senior in Degenhart, and that's exactly what happened, giving the Lobos their second loss in the Mountain West all year long, right? Degenhart's good. Cardenas isn't bad either. He averages 12 a night. Andrew Meadow averages 11. Javon Buchanan averaging 10. But again, if we're talking about Boise State, we are especially, and if we're picking Boise State, we're picking Tyson Degenhart. But again, I don't mind Cardenas at the 1 as well. I mean, he's a guy who averages 12 and 7 every night. He's a pretty solid 1 for Boise State. I get it's a letdown spot here, but I think Boise State's able to play off the momentum. I think so. Going on the road to Nevada, it's just the Wolfpack haven't been great this year. They haven't. They really haven't. I know they've, prior to their loss against Colorado State, they did win 4 in a row, but a tight one against UNLV, and then those other wins are Air Force, Fresno, and San Jose State. Again, yes, San Jose State's a better win than the other two, but I don't know. I'm not sold in Nevada. I think Boise can go on the road and ultimately win this basketball game, and that's exactly the pick we're going to make. Give me Boise State on the road to beat Nevada. We look at the odds, -1.5 here. +1.5 for Boise. They are dogs on the road, so we're going to take it. Boise State, +1.5. +100 on the money line. I don't mind it. Give me the Boise State Broncos, Tyson Degenhart, and the guys. Go to Reno and take down the Nevada Wolfpack. Just take the money line +100. We're going with Boise. As we move on to our final best bet of the video, and we will conclude in the West Coast Conference. It's a huge game in the WCC. This is our final game at 5 o'clock tonight, but I don't know. There wasn't a late night spot I liked. I was thinking Stanford -6.5 against Cal, but I'll lay off. I was thinking UNLV potentially +3.5 at home against Colorado State, but no, this is the nightcap for us. At 5 o'clock, we are going to Spokane, Washington for Gonzaga versus St. Mary's, and give me the Gales. It's a spot that, in terms of the spread and like the money line, in terms of that, it's very similar to the Florida A&M Alabama State game we had earlier, right? The best bet is St. Mary's in the spread, but I don't mind a sprinkle on the money line. +220 for St. Mary's doesn't feel like the worst. Now I get it. It's hard to go to Spokane and win. It just is. One team has done it all year long in the Big West, and it happens to be the Santa Clara Broncos. Now Gonzaga is going to go to Santa Clara on Tuesday. I might make my way to that game. We'll see. But that's the only time Gonzaga's lost at home this year, at least in the West Coast Conference. The first matchup between these two squads in Moraga was won by the Gales. St. Mary's winning it in typical St. Mary's fashion. Low-scoring defensive battle. The Gales win it 62-58. I'm telling you right now, St. Mary's is a team that's going to get completely overlooked when it comes to the NCAA tournament. I forget. Oh, God. I saw someone's bracketology. I don't think it was the official ESPN one, but I'm going to check right now. The matchup they had St. Mary's in the first round was absolutely perfect. It was a spot that I think everyone overlooked St. Mary's. They were playing a big school. Who was it? It was St. Mary's and UConn. Someone had. I think they had St. Mary's as an... Was it St. Mary's and UConn? I think it was. They had St. Mary's at an 8, UConn at a 9. I don't think they're going to both end up in that spot. It was like a week old tournament layout that I saw. I think it was on Twitter. But if you get a spot like that for St. Mary's in the tournament, oh my goodness. Everyone's going to take UConn. Oh, they're going to go for their three-peat, Dan Hurley, and that's fair. But people aren't watching St. Mary's basketball this season. It's a running joke, but it's fair. When St. Mary's decides you're not gonna score, you're not going to score. The prime example of that is when they played Santa Clara this year and held Santa Clara to no points in, 12 minutes? I mean, that's just what St. Mary's does. They are one of the best defensive teams in the entire country, and that's apparent in the scores that they post. I mean, we'll just talk about it since the first Santa Clara game where they really showed everyone how good their defense was. They go to the Levy Center, go to Santa Clara, beat the Broncos 67-54. They beat Zaga and Moraga by 4. Somehow they lose to USF. San Francisco beats them by 1 point. They go to Corvallis, hold Oregon State to 49 points, 63-49 is the final. They beat Santa Clara and Moraga 73-64. Wazoo 77-56. Portland 79-66. That's what St. Mary's does. They hold you. Offensively, they're not the best squad, but they can get it done, and that starts with Augustus Marcelonis averaging 14.5 points a game. Polius Mukaskis is their forward who averages 13, and their center Mitchell Saxon averages 10 and 8 a night as well. But again, Murkowskis, probably butchering it, and Saxon, again, both those guys, those guys get it done in the glass. I mean, Murkowskis averaging about 9 boards a game. Again, add on to that 13 points a night. It's a really good defensive unit all around in St. Mary's, and I get it. It's going to be much tougher for them to go on the road and beat Zaga than it was beating Zaga in Moraga. I get that, and especially with the St. Mary's team where I don't know how motivated they're going to be. Obviously, they're going to be motivated to beat Gonzaga because, again, Gonzaga has ruled the West Coast Conference for so long, and obviously they're leaving soon to the Pac-12. Is St. Mary's following them? I don't think they are, right? There was discussion St. Mary's could go to the Pac-12, but I think St. Mary's is staying in the West Coast, which, whatever. I mean, they'll just win it every single year. I think Santa Clara will probably be their biggest competition, maybe San Francisco, but obviously with Oregon State and Wazoo going back to the Pac-12 as well with Zaga. I don't know if that's next year or the year after. I think it's in 2 years. But still, Pac-12 is weird. They're gonna have Tulane in the Pac-12. The Pacific 12 is gonna have the Tulane Green Wave. Anyways, I still think St. Mary's is going to be somewhat hyped up to play this game. They kind of already have their tournament bid, on lock. They're going to get in. Even if they lose out, I think St. Mary's could probably still get in. Yeah, they'll get in. If they somehow lost to Zaga, LMU, and Oregon State, they'd still get in the tournament. And even if they lost in their first game in the West Coast tourney, they'd still get in. And the thing is, the West Coast tourney works. It's the weird one where every team gets an opportunity, but St. Mary's and Zaga likely being the 1 and 2 seed in this tournament. But actually, San Francisco could get it. Regardless, we probably think it'll be Zaga and St. Mary's as the 1 and 2 seeds in this tournament. Usually it's how it always works out with those two squads. Usually Zaga won. But regardless, they're not going to have to play until the semifinals because it's stacked, where that's how the buys work. So, 3 and 4 in this tournament, likely San Francisco and Santa Clara, they don't got to play till the quarters. And then before that, Loyola Marymount and Oregon State won't have to play until the round before that, right? It'll all start with San Diego and Pacific in the play-in round, or Pepperdine, whoever is in the bottom 2. But that's just how the West Coast Conference works. So St. Mary's, again, conceivably, could lose out, and they will definitely still get in the tournament. I don't think they're losing out because they're not going to lose to Loyola Marymount, likely not, and they're definitely not losing in Moraga to Oregon State next Saturday. But still, I think St. Mary's will be somewhat still pumped to play this game just because it's Zaga. I get it. Zaga's got talent. I'm not underestimating them with Graham Ike, with Cleve Battle, obviously Ryan Nembhard, who's one of the elite passers, if not the most elite passer in all of college basketball this season. Braden Huff involved as well. Nolan Hickman. There's good players on Gonzaga. They have just fallen short in some of these matchups all year long. If Santa Clara is able to go in to Spokane and win, I think St. Mary's is able to do the same exact thing. Obviously, a much more stylistic matchup. Obviously, we're not dealing with an athletic playmaker like Adama Alpha Ball with St. Mary's, but again, a defensive squad who should be able to shut down Gonzaga. We saw the Gales win a very defensive battle against Zaga earlier in the year, and I think they do it again. Yes, it is always going to be tough for anybody in the West Coast to beat Gonzaga twice. Hell, ask Oregon State how that went in the second time they played Zaga up in Spokane, but I think St. Mary's does get it done. I'm going to take the Gales to go on the road. Again, the official play here, and the best bet is +6.5 for the Gales, but I don't mind the money line as well. But again, the official play is +6.5 here for the Gales on the road in Spokane. So folks, thank y'all for watching our 10 best bets for college basketball here on February 22nd. If you have not yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow for more college basketball best bets, and later today as well for our daily NBA predictions. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.